A very good morning to all of you. In this lecture, we will discuss types of jigs. In my previous lecture, I have told you about the jigs and fixtures. But before starting the types of jig, I will tell you something about the function of jig. Jig holds and positions the work and locates or guides the cutting tool with respect to the workpiece. Mostly a jig is not fixed to the machine table and it is higher, lighter in construction as compared to fixture, and jigs are used on drilling, reaming, tapping and counter boring operations. Jigs and fixtures are devices used to facilitate production works, and a jig is most commonly used as a work holding device for drilling operations, and jigs are designed especially to hold a workpiece of material of any size and shape and to guide the drill and taping or reamer into predetermined position on the workpiece. When a jig is used, the pattern of the holes produced will always be identical. If you will not use jigs, the pattern of the holes that you are going to produce in any type of metal sheet will not be identical. This enables closed door lenses to be maintained between the holes location. So is that totally clear here that if you want to produce identical holes in drilling process, so you should use jigs that will help to you provide or maintain a closed door lens. The size of a jig depends on the dimensions of the part, and it is designed to hold. Small jigs are usually moved by hand on the drill press table until the guide or drill bushing is directly under the drill. The rotating drill is guided through the bushing and into the work by using a lever on the press. Large jigs are fastened to work table and the drill is positioned and to the bushing. A jig can always bushing of many sizes in it. Their use depends on the dimensions of the hole specified for the part to be drilled. Jigs are also incorporated into special purpose machines that allow drill to of various sizes held in multiple drill heads to enter from all directions, and the machine operator has only to load and unload the parts because the clamping is usually automatic. The automobile industries uses this method in the manufacture of engines because of the large quantity to be produced, the many holes required, and the close dimension required between holes. Most commonly, manufacturers use the smaller jigs as small parts are more numerous than large ones in any manufactured unit, except in special cases there must be a quantity of parts to be proceed that have identical dimensions to make the use of a jig worthwhile, and by providing locating surfaces or locating pins in the jig or and clamping the part against these critical dimensions can be controlled. These pins or surfaces must be hardened and ground to withstand wear in order to maintain the closed door lenses. So, in other words, you can say that if you will use jig in your manufacturing process, any type of manufacturing process that is you are perform on the workpiece, then it will be help to maintain the closed door lenses. And now I will tell you about something types of jigs. Here is the some types of jig has been given. Basically, if we are talking about types of jig, then we can say that two types of jigs that are in general use: clamp jig and box jig. These are clamp jig and box jig. These are the commonly general types jigs that are used, and a few fundamentals forms of jigs will be given here, and various names are applied to jigs. such as drilling, reaming, and tapping according to the operation to be performed. If I will talk about clamp jig, that is not mentioned here, but I will tell you something about C clamp jig, CLAMP clamp jig. This device drives is named from the fact that it is resembles some form of clamp. It is adapted for use of on workpieces on which the axes of all the holes that are to be drilled are parallel. Clamp jigs are sometimes called open jigs. A simple example of clamp jig is a design for drilling holes that are all the same size. For example, the stud holes in the cylinder head. Cylinder head and uh, is frequently it is attached to the cylinder head and held by U-bolt clamps when used as a guide for the drill in the drilling operations. And the jig makes certain that the holes are in correct locations because the holes in the jig were located originally with precision. Therefore, lying out is not necessary. A disadvantage of the simple clamp jig is that only holes of a single size can be drilled. Either fixed or removable bushing can be used to overcome these disadvantages. Fixed bushing are sometimes used because they are made of hardened steel, which reduces wear. So, if you want to reduce wear, you can use fixed busing because I have told you that they are made of hardened steel because which reduces the wear, and removable busings are used when drills of different sizes are to be used or when the drilled holes are to be finished by reaming or tapping. So this is the clamp jigs, and now I will discuss to you what is the template jig. Template, this is the basic diagram of template jig. You can see easily, this one is the drill, this is the workpiece, and this is the template, and these are the holes uh, you want to produce. uh, Now, the template jig is the simplest uh, jig of all the types, and a plate to having holes that you can easily see in the diagrams. One holes and the another hole. Desired position, in that position you want to drill hole in the sheets, you can drill serves as a which is fixed on component one to be drilled, and the drill 21 is guided through these holes of template 2, and these required two holes are drilled on the workpiece at the same relative positions with each other as the template. A given figure of template jig, and another one is the plate jig. This is basic diagram of plate jig. This one is the drill, and this is the template, and this is drill bus, and this is the workpiece. You can easily see, and this diagram explain the plate jig. A plate jig is an improvement of template jig. Yani in other words, you can say that it is the extension of template jig. Additional features added in this plate jigs by incorporating drill buses on the template. Drill buses is not available in template jig. You can see it in the diagram. And the plate jig is employed to drill holes on large parts and maintain accurate spacing with each other. This is the plate jig, and now this is the channel jig that I have told you in starting. Channel jig, या clamp jig, yes, capital C jig, and this is the diameter jig. Diameter jigs provide a simple means of locating a drill hole exactly on a diameter of a cylindrical or spherical pieces. You can see easily in the diagram. This is the piece in spherical shape. Clear? This is the clamping plate, and these are the drill bus, and this is the clamping bolt that will be help to clamp this workpiece, or this is the V block in which the spherical shape workpiece will be placed, and you can easily hold and or clamp uh, the spherical shape workpieces in this V block and with the help of diameter jig. Another simple clamp jig is called channel jig that I told you in previous my uh, uh, lecture, and this one uh, these are the some types of jigs. uh, Now I will tell you about something box jig. This is not mentioned in your PPT. Box jigs, sometimes called closed jigs, usually resembles a box like structures. They can be used where holes are to be drilled in the work at various angles. If you want to drill uh, at various angles, अगर आप अलग अलग एंगल्स पर होल्स को ड्रिल करना चाह रहे हैं, then you can use box jig. The jig is built in the form of a partly open slot in which the link is moved against a stop and then clamped with the clamp bolts A, B, C, uh, and a box jig with hinge cover leaf that may be opened to permit the work to be inserted and then closed to clamp the work uh, into position is usually called a leaf jig. Drill bushings are usually located in the leaf. However, bushings may be located in other surfaces to permit the jig to permit work over more than one side is known as rollover jig. A box jig for angular drilling is easily designed for providing the jig with legs of unequal length, thus tilting the jig to be desired angle. This type of jig is used where one or more holes are required to be drilled at angles with the axis of the work. That I told you in before. And if you're talking about the design principle of jigs, then some factors of prime importance to keep in mind with jigs: proper clamping of the work, and support of the work while machining, and provision for chip clearance. These are the three important factors that have you to keep in your mind when design the principle for jig. When excessive pressure is used in clamping, some distortion can result. Distortion is a type of defect. If the distortion is measurable, the result in inaccuracy in the final dimensions. This is illustrated in an another way. In the clamping forces should be applied in such a way that will not produce objectionable distortion. Distortion mean if you will apply the force, the shape of the workpiece will be changed. Then this is the type of decay that you want to know. This is not your requirement, so you have to apply the force in a measurable form. And it is also important to design the clamping force in such a way that the work will be remain in the desired position while machining. You have to keep in your mind that point when you are designing a, type of jig, and you have to know the amount of applied clamping force. If you will apply the more force than the compressive or tensile strength of the workpiece, and there will be a fracture will be occurs. So you have to keep in your mind when designing the principle of G. And these are the some important points that I told you in my lecture. If you have any questions, you can ask me, and thank you very much.